What is up, everybody? Welcome to another build. This is the I-16 from Eduard. A little bit of a change up for this channel, as I usually try to stick with a collection, but I'm going to do things in order in a little bit of a different fashion so that you guys can see more different kits and different brands and things like that, and more reviews on different products. This is an older kit, but it has a lot of cool little parts and different features for it. A couple different detailed versions, but Eduard didn't disappoint with all the stuff that's included in the kit, including photo etch, mass, and pretty decent decals. Now that we're done with all the bag crinkling, we can move on to the little itsy bitsy tiny parts that come with this kit. And there are a lot of little itty bitty tiny parts. Besides the fuselage, I think every single thing was a different part or piece. The fuselage had a little bit of detail, not too much, but I don't think the actual aircraft did have a lot of detail. I could be definitely wrong. I literally have no idea what this vehicle is or why I even built it. But a few little tiny parts got put together before putting the fuselages together. A lot of bits of this actually video was cut out because of tiny itsy bitsy little fiddly parts that sucked to glue in. First of all, this plastic, I don't know what was going on with it, but the Tamiya glue just did not want to adhere to it whatsoever. It literally, I don't know, it turned brittle against the plastic and literally it didn't fuse anything together. So I'm not sure if it was user error or what, but I will have to say that this plastic is way different than Tamiya or Revel plastic. Those are two go-tos that are super easy to kind of maneuver, to glue to sand out, but this plastic was super hard, brittle, and just really ridiculous. Next, onto this photo etch part. These were really easy to assemble. They have folding pins on all their stuff, so you literally just fold them together the way they're supposed to be folded, and you should come out with a decent part. Once all the little tiny photo etch parts were actually assembled, folded, and whatnot, you can then assemble them into the actual interior of the fuselage itself. And I will reiterate that this is a complete, utter, and total waste of time. The literally only thing that you can see is the top of the instrument panel, which is actually buried inside of the fuselage, and the seat cushion, and possibly the seat and the seat belts too. But other than that, it's literally such a waste of time to even go through this step. So I'm gonna just veer past this and say, don't even do this step. Just move along and just get everything else in, like the seat, and that's it, because that's all you can see is just the seat cushion, and whatever. So this is a waste of time, so don't even do this step. It's literally a waste of photo etch if you ask me. I should have just kept the photo etch and put it in a different kit and used it for something else other than used it for this, because you can't even see it. Even though this instrument panel looks really, really cool, you cannot see this whatsoever. It's literally buried halfway between the fuselage and the engine, so you literally cannot see a single part of this instrument panel. So this is a complete and utter waste of time, but it is a nice instrument panel, so save it for another build, maybe I don't know, mix and mash up type thing, anything but put it in this kit, because you cannot see it whatsoever. And even if you try to twist around and see, and no, you can't see this at all. But either way, I still put in gloss coat on all these those dials and stuff, and now we can go into the part that you can actually see in this kit. Here is the seat, and it actually took me a good 10 or 15 tries to actually get this thing together. All these parts were so fiddly, man. I do not know why the Tamiya glue did not work on any of these parts. But I guess I'd opt for super glue next time and see if that would work better. I just wish that I could have melted the plastic together more. Anyways, I sprayed this with a custom mix of light blue, as I saw in some reference pictures that it was like a light bluish kind of gray, and I just opted to kind of use my artistic eye and try to mimic it the best I could by using some green and some different other colors that kind of melded together to make it look like it does now. Next, I can put in all these custom little colors and stuff to make the interior look relatively real. I did my best researching things, but let's be honest, you're doing a World War II aircraft. There's a number of things that were different on each aircraft individually. So, I mean, honestly, if you're trying to recreate a full reality of the actual airplane, it's pretty much virtually impossible because you don't know exactly which chip this guy sat on and chipped the seat perfectly. So I just try to do my best with my kind of artistic eye and see what looks best in the interior of the parts that you can actually see. Next, I use a chipping method with a sponge, which I use on all of my interiors as it leaves a really nice pattern with the aluminum. And I also go through with a brush to highlight any edges that I can. This is one of the very first brushes that I started off with modeling, and nowadays it makes a pretty good silvering technique brush. Once the inside was chipped, I used an interior green colored wash from Ammo MIG and just splotched it around exactly where all these panel lines were, and just made sure to really accent this color, as I did see this technique used on the box art, and I wanted to kind of reiterate that in the interior but not the exterior. So now that I have this kind of Russian green popping through, I can really tell that the color really stands out, and it's very unique interior, I thought. It's definitely a lot different than your regular standard, you know, OD interior. So now we're going to fuse these fuselage halves together, as that's where we're at in this part of the build. But the fuselage halves were very warped. It was literally so bad. I gotta say, it took me a good 4 or 5 tries to get these things glued together, and I honestly don't even remember how it even glued together in the first place. I just knew that I spent hours sitting here holding it with my hands, waiting for this glue to dry, and I had to re-glue it 100 times, and it just didn't work. I don't know what the best solution was for this particular aircraft, and this is like my first time just getting an old kit and, you know, building it for myself. I probably won't do that again. I think I'm just gonna do new kits, and that'll be it for me, because dealing with harsh plastic like this is a pain in my rear. Modeling should be really, really fun, and that's all I'm saying. Next, I can glue some seat belts with that super glue that I talked about before to the actual seat itself. Once the super glue is dry, I could then bend the parts just like any PE part is typically put onto an aircraft. These PE seat belts actually came in the kit, and they are pretty custom seat belts. So it's good that Eduard actually put these in the kit, because it's definitely a unique seat belt for sure. Now I'm just using those tweezers to actually bend the PE into shape so that they look kind of uniform and aligned with the seat. I dabbed the back of the seat belts with some super glue so that they would actually stick to the seat itself. I had a little bit of overlapping here, so I just opted to actually bend those down and see if I can actually get those bent down so that they look natural, folding down over the seat. I really find PE to be very satisfying. I like doing it, even though it can be difficult and kind of strenuous and frustrating. I actually really do like bending these things into shape and getting them to stick. I think it's a particular challenge that I find interesting, and I like it. At first it really intimidated me to do it all, but nowadays I find it kind of peaceful, which is kind of strange. Now I can move on to the engine. So the engine is very, very simple. It's literally just one piece with a little stick in the middle of it, and there's this PE that goes around the outside, which you use a ballpoint pen to actually highlight the inner sides and make it indented on the PE itself. Super easy to do, couple step process. But the only thing I couldn't figure out is how to actually paint this part first and kind of put it in the engine, which I really should have done now thinking about it. But the fact that it was shiny silver, I really didn't want to take it away, as it was a really good accent to the rest of the kit. So I just kept it that way. It seems like every single part on this actual airplane kind of screwed with me. Like every single part had a problem, there was no gaps. There's no gaps anywhere, but it had a problem with actually fitting together. Like, I'm not saying that it didn't fit together well, it's just there wasn't enough connection points to where it was really easy for things to fit together. It was just like glued with a tiny little minuscule millicentimeter whatever, and like there was only one glue spot on parts, and it's just really difficult. So next I'm just highlighting this black base with some white and just giving it some accents, as the undersides are really easy kind of duck egg blue color. So this is my go-to process for any airbrush paint job on any kit, because it just adds a lot of flavor to the model build, and it's really easy to do. It's literally forgiving. Like, you can make as many mistakes as you want, and if it was a mistake, you can literally sand it out if it really bugs you too much. And because of this too, this is because my compressor literally refuses to not vomit over every single aircraft I've ever built. But anyways, it's literally the best way to just get that real kind of original tone in the paint job and kind of make it look sun-dried, even though it's on the other side of the aircraft. But it's sun-dried and weathered before you even have to touch it with any post shading or any weathering effects or anything like that after the paint job. I try to veer away from doing too much after the whole aircraft is painted. I feel like you can achieve the same thing before painting the actual aircraft with the final color. I don't seem to get the same result by painting a solid color without doing pre-shading effects. I don't see the same effects, and maybe I'm just not good with oils or whatever. Afterwards, I literally don't want to be good at oils because they're just annoying. I'd rather just do my pin wash, have my pre-shaded stuff done, and then move on. It's just easier for me, and I don't have to be so abrasively precise with the airbrush. So I go through in stages, and especially with this aircraft, there's like not a lot of panel lines or anything on the fuselage, so this added a lot of texture to what I had to work with. But after I go through and highlight all the areas with the actual color that I'm using over the white highlighted areas that I did previously, I then just go over it with a nice, thin, smooth top coat, and it basically kind of blends everything together. It doesn't make any of the panel lines look too harsh, and still has that accented flavor underneath the final paint coat, so you can see those panel lines show through. So the airbrush I'm using is a Grex airbrush, and I love this airbrush. It is literally so easy to use. It doesn't make my hand cramp up because it's actually a trigger airbrush, and I can get close enough to the actual models without being all over and on top of it. Like, it's very usable, and because of the trigger, the way it's set up, I can literally stick it anywhere that I want, and it comes out with a good and it comes out with a nozzle that's pretty versatile. I mean, you could go as small as a hairpin with this thing, so as long as you have your paint thinned out properly, which I can never do. But I do like this setup. Just the only thing is that their compressor didn't last very long. It's a good compressor. I still use it, but it builds up with water so quickly. I mean, I use it maybe twice a week, and it builds up the water. Like, I switch on and off with my master airbrush. The next part is these landing gear. Now, I didn't film this at all because these are just way too fiddly. I spent probably 5-6 hours on these landing gear. I mean, on each one. Like, it was ridiculous. No joke. Literally ridiculous. It did not glue together like I wanted it to, and nothing worked. Like, it was so fiddly. So sorry about that, but I didn't care. After 2 hours of actually recording me putting the landing gear together and it falling apart every single time, I was like, alright, whatever. I'm super gluing this stupid thing together and getting this done with. I then put the same process on the top of the aircraft as I was painting this side gray. This is Vallejo light gray, and what I actually did here was I just highlighted the areas first with the actual gray. I didn't use any white on this at all. I just kind of wanted it to just be gray. I didn't want to put too much time and effort in it, as I knew that the landing gear were going to break anyways, so I was kind of fed up with this build at this point and wanted it over with. But once this gray was done, I cracked on and got these decals on. But first, I wanted to mention that, yes, there was literally no, so I did some squiggles. There's just no detail on the fuselage whatsoever, and I didn't go through the trouble to find anything online that there was supposed to be any detail on it, so I just did my best and weathered it as much as I could with the gray that I had, and didn't want to do too much. So once that was painted, I could finally put the decals on, and these went on swimmingly. These Eduard decals are pretty old, and they still hold up to their name. Like, I didn't have literally a single problem with these decals at all, other than the fact that they were a little bit brittle with how hot the water I had, and I pulled them out, and as you can see, I cut that star, but that was because the it didn't line up with the panel line very good, and I just wanted it perfect. But so they were really brittle, and I didn't know really how to go about this, so I just filmed this whole process. So they all fell off the decal sheet within 2 seconds of putting them in the water, but they didn't dissolve, so they were salvageable. And I thought that was a good move. Right. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to break out the camera and just film this lifetime. So here I am trying to fiddle with these stars and make them work. Now, I don't know the best process for this. I just did it the way I usually do things, which is some muscle and patience. Like, this is how I tackle all my projects. Muscle and patience. I grabbed the star with the tweezers, no matter what they look like, and just stuck it on the aircraft and seen if I could brush these stars out. But to no avail, that didn't really work that well. Tweezers? So after trying with brushes and silicone tip brushes and different things, I then just kind of finally said, all right, I've had it. I'm just going to use the tweezers and pluck this out. So I struggled for about maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and it seemed to be that the best way to do this was just to pull it apart with some tweezers. But yes, you did see that one of the stars did chip. Next, I'm peeling off some paint, as this was painted in duraluminum, and this was a particularly fun part of the project for me because I wanted to get a nice perfect ring around this fuselage, as this was the highlighting thing about this aircraft, is that it has that ring around it, and I think I achieved that pretty well here. So now to some satisfying tape pulling.
So yeah, it's a tribute to them. You know, patriotic Brits after all.
And I could give you my best impression of Daniel, whatever his name, that does Blue Planet, but I'm not going to do that for you. Next, I was going to actually put this on hold here to talk about this a little bit, but, you know, it's just a simple aircraft. It has some exhaust pipes on the thing. It's going to leave some cool, dirty, nasty, oily streaks, so I decided to just paint these in the stupid colors that they were. I just opted to use 3 different Vallejo colors to paint those exhaust pipes with some dark brown and some rust colors, just so it looked, I don't know, a little bit brownish and made it look kind of real. Next thing was I was trying to be fancy and put this on with a piece of tack, but that didn't work, so I just stuck it on there with my fingers. That's kind of the way things usually go in the hobby room. I try to make something look perfect, but then it's just easier to put on with your fingers, so that's what happens with all my videos. Anyways, once that was on, I can now do some streaking effects. Now, I finally bought some Tamiya smoke to actually put on this aircraft and to use as exhaust stains, but it didn't really come out quite as I expected. They were really light, and I don't know, I really wanted to go for a more dramatic effect with the smoke, since the fuselage didn't have a lot of character to it anyways. So the smoke is thinned out probably 70-30, and I could have gone over this like 30-40 different times, and it would have looked nice either way, but when I turned it, the light caught it in a certain way where it didn't even look like I had done anything to it anyways. So I just opted to go for my starred effect and use a silicone brush to actually apply some black smoke with this. It's kind of like makeup stuff. So I think this silicone brush was not really the best pick for this type of effect, as it left really streaking like pencil marks. I could have used a different tip, but I just tried to make this one work. I put some brown on and put some more black on, and just tried my best to really kind of put it in there, but it just didn't really work that well until I started using some water. Once I watered this down, brushed it out a little bit, this really worked to my advantage. So what I do is just take that brush and just dab it with water kind of knock it off on a cotton swab and just keep swiping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that seemed to have a good effect on this thing. Then, if there was any extras on the leftovers, I would just push it away with a wet cotton swab, and that seemed to kind of brush it in the right direction of where I was headed with it. Now, obviously, it doesn't look right now, but after a few times of diluting this stuff and kind of monkeying with it over and over and over again, reapplying it and rebrushing it out and re-wetting it, I got to a really nice consistency. I think it is easier to just airbrush this stuff out now that I've kind of figured out airbrushing it with Tamiya paints, but I still opt for this stuff when in a pinch. Now I can remove the mask, revealing that wonderful canopy wonderful interior that you cannot see whatsoever. And obviously this is a really exciting part of the build. It's probably the most satisfying part, is to just reveal those interior parts that you did so long ago and unmask that canopy to reveal the actual airplane itself pretty much finished. I want to thank you guys all for watching this video and just appreciate every view, every subscriber, everything like that. So thank you guys so much. I really enjoy doing this and presenting my models to you. So I really appreciate you watching this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Let's get back to building.